What would you do if love and new life were threatened by hatred lurking in the shadows? Sam, heavily pregnant and vulnerable due to her health condition, finds her only source of strength in the unwavering care of her husband, Officer Lee. While doctors reassure them of safety, danger creeps closer as Sam's cruel stepmother secretly plots to shatter their happiness. Each day at the farmhouse becomes a silent battle between love and malice, hope and fear. Will their devotion be enough to protect mother and child? Subscribe now and follow this gripping story of resilience, danger, and unbreakable love. Sam was entering the final stage of her pregnancy, and her belly had grown so large that every movement seemed to require all her strength. Even the simplest gestures, walking across the wooden porch of their farmhouse, bending slightly to pick up a basket of fruits, or just shifting herself into a more comfortable position on the sofa, had become slow and deliberate. The once lively and independent woman now moved with the fragile grace of someone carrying a precious life within her. And Lee, as both her husband and a police officer used to anticipating danger, could not stop himself from worrying every single day. His eyes followed her constantly, scanning her face for signs of discomfort, his ears straining to catch even the faintest hint of fatigue in her voice. Lee's concern was not unfounded. Sam had long suffered from a condition related to high blood pressure, and the doctors had warned them from the very beginning that her pregnancy would not be easy. In the last trimester, when the risks for both mother and child increased significantly, the weight of that warning pressed heavily on Lee's heart. He would insist on accompanying her to every medical checkup, sitting in the sterile, white-walled clinic with his hands clasped tightly together, silently praying for good news. Each time the doctor reassured them that both mother and baby were stable, Lee would breathe out a long sigh of relief, as though he had been holding his breath for hours. Those precious words of reassurance were like a lifeline, reminding him that despite the looming dangers, there was still hope, still light shining on their path forward. But even in those moments of relief, Lee's mind never fully rested. At night, when Sam had finally fallen asleep beside him, he would lie awake staring at the ceiling, his arm protectively resting over her swollen belly. His thoughts raced with a mixture of fear and determination, fear of losing the woman he loved more than anything, and determination to shield her and their unborn child from every possible harm. Out in the fields of their farmhouse, the crickets sang in the darkness and the stars glimmered above, yet Lee could not shake the feeling that their family's peace was fragile, as though a single misstep could shatter it all. To him, Sam's pregnancy was not just a period of waiting. It was a test of his vigilance, his faith, and his unwavering love. And no matter how heavy the burden of worry became, he knew he would carry it gladly, because protecting Sam and their baby was the most important mission of his life. Yet while Lee devoted himself entirely to protecting Sam, danger lurked far closer than he realized. The walls of their farmhouse, which to him symbolized warmth and safety, could not block out the shadow of hatred cast by Sam's stepmother. This woman, hardened by years of resentment and consumed by jealousy, had never accepted Sam's happiness. To her, the sight of Sam preparing to welcome a child, surrounded by love, stability, and the promise of a bright future, was unbearable. Her heart, already darkened by bitterness, twisted even further at the thought that Sam, the stepdaughter she despised, might live a life blessed with everything she herself had failed to keep. Unable to swallow her rage, she set her schemes into motion. She did not storm into the farmhouse openly, nor did she reveal herself in front of Lee, whose sharp instincts as a police officer she knew would quickly sense her hostility. Instead, she chose a subtler, more insidious path: surveillance. Hidden eyes began to watch the farm. Strangers disguised as harmless workers lingered near the fields. Travelers paused too long at the fences, pretending to admire the land. Every movement Sam made, walking slowly to the garden, resting beneath the shade of the old oak, or waving at the neighbors, was quietly observed and reported back. Sam herself could sense the heaviness in the air, though she tried not to let it trouble Lee. A shiver would crawl up her spine when she felt unseen eyes fixed on her, and she would instinctively place her hands over her belly as if to shield her unborn child from the weight of that gaze. She said nothing, fearing her words would only deepen Lee's anxiety, yet silence did little to ease the dread that gnawed at her heart. For the stepmother, patience was part of the game. She knew that the final months of pregnancy were the most vulnerable time for both mother and child. All she needed was the right moment, the slightest crack in Lee's vigilance, the briefest instant when Sam was left unguarded. Then she could strike, and in doing so, tear down the fragile happiness she so loathed. But in her obsession, she underestimated the very thing that bound Sam and Lee together: love. For every shadow she cast upon the farmhouse, there was a light burning fiercely in Lee's heart, a light that would not easily be extinguished. Yet the question remained: how long could their love hold back the storm that was gathering in silence? The question of what lay ahead lingered in the stillness of the farm, heavy and unresolved. Lee's days became a careful balance between tender devotion to Sam and the quiet vigilance of a man who knew danger was closing in. He doubled his efforts, ensuring that Sam's appointments were never missed, that her meals were carefully prepared, that the farmhouse doors were locked at night. Yet, beneath his calm exterior, he could feel the storm of malice brewing just beyond their fields. The stepmother's unseen presence hovered like a vulture, and though Lee could not yet see her hand at work, his instincts told him that evil was drawing closer with every passing day. Sam, though reassured by Lee's unwavering protection, could not completely shake her unease. The weight of her pregnancy was already enough to make her body fragile, but it was the thought of her stepmother's hatred that truly haunted her. Often, she would pause in the garden, her hands resting on her belly, whispering gentle words of comfort to her unborn child. She spoke not only to soothe herself, but as though her baby could hear and understand the promise she made that no darkness, no cruelty would ever take away the love waiting to embrace them at birth. Those quiet moments of resolution became her hidden strength, even as the threat loomed ever nearer. Still, fate seemed to tease them with uncertainty. Would their love, their determination, truly be enough to withstand the cruelty of someone so intent on their destruction? Lee often asked himself this question during sleepless nights, when the farmhouse lay cloaked in silence and his thoughts raced toward grim possibilities. Yet every time he looked at Sam, her face illuminated softly by the moonlight, her breath steady in sleep, he found his answer. She was his anchor, his reason to fight, and the child they awaited was the very embodiment of hope. The battle lines had been drawn long before either of them realized it. On one side, a love fierce enough to endure pain and fear. On the other, a hatred cold enough to scheme against a pregnant woman. The world outside their farmhouse seemed peaceful, but within the shadows, the stepmother's plan waited to unfold. Whether it would succeed or crumble in the face of Lee's protection remained uncertain, yet one truth glowed brighter than all the uncertainty. Their family, fragile though it seemed, was bound by a love that could not easily be broken. And sometimes, even against the darkest storms, it is love that tips the balance towards survival.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Ní Tử Sam Review. Trong tập phim ngày hôm nay thì cảnh sát Ni đã đưa Sam đi siêu âm để xem con của mình trong bụng có khỏe hay không, bởi vì Sam đang bị bệnh nền về thai kỳ, điều đó rất nguy hiểm cho thai nhi. Nhưng mà thật may mắn là mẹ con Sam đều an toàn. Nhưng có một điều đang xảy ra, đó chính là mẹ kế của Sam biết Sam đang có thai, bà ta đang có âm mưu gì đó khi đang cho người theo dõi trang trại của Sam nhằm tìm cơ hội để ra tay với mẹ con Sam. Liệu rằng âm mưu của bà ta có thành hiện thực hay không? Tất cả sẽ được hé lộ vào các tập tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy bấm vào nút đăng ký kênh để nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập phim sẽ phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh nha. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn. Bye bye.